Hi, I'm Charles Stubington. I also, I guess, go by the name of Waste Wizard Doodles and Artbeat of Resilience. And I guess I can call myself an illustrator, but I've always seen myself as more of a kind of technical waste management-y risk uh, person. I don't really know what the technical name would be. But yeah, I illustrate in my spare time. It's a passion project, and all the illustrations tend to kind of follow what I need to know for my 9 to 5 day job, and it's built up as a catalogue around that. So yeah, I guess going forwards, I will be a resilience educator, and still dabble in aspects of environmental management and waste. So the very simple answer to that, I guess, is my dyslexia. I'm dyslexic. It's both a blessing and a curse, and it's something which I've had since I was learning to read and write, I guess. The images and the illustration is very much my way of being able to put the information I need to know into my brain. I have my very like when I take notes all the way back to high school. It was just bullet points and doodles in the margin. The very first risk illustration I did, I guess, was a series of little blue penguins as I was doing a case study for the Christchurch earthquake in 2011, I think it was. And like very vividly burned into my memory, I have this little blue penguin with a sewage pipe running over it, which has burst, just dripping sewage onto a little penguin. And in my mind, that ties the information to the fact that there was seismic lensing, which occurred in that earthquake, made it a lot worse than you might expect. It ruptured a lot of the underground kind of infrastructure, so communications cables, sewage network, that kind of stuff. And the lack of sanitation that happened afterwards exacerbated the issues of kind of recovery and led to, I believe, a number of kind of outbreaks of dysentery and other kind of sewage-borne diseases. So that's my earliest kind of risk illustration series, but it's very much followed me through my career. So I've had environmental consultancy experience. So there's been fire management stuff, there's been flooding, there's been contamination. I then went into international waste shipments. So I've got a whole load of illustrations on international shipments, the Basel Convention, the Stockholm Convention, and then all the way through to kind of risk management and recovery. So emergency stuff like that. That's where I really kind of got into resilience as a kind of subject rather than just associated kind of environmental risk, which I was used to. And I've thoroughly enjoyed working in the sector. The people are lovely, the conversations are interesting, and because I'm always curious, that's a dyslexic thing. I'm always wanting to learn more, and the more I learn, the more experience, the more notes I take, and the more silly little illustrations that there are. And about 5 years ago, I decided I've got books and books of random notes from the stuff I do. Let's try and teach myself to illustrate. Let's try and make it so they are usable and I can show them and I can use them in presentations, PowerPoints, make things a bit more fun. And it's developed from there. I always keep with me on my phone like one of the original digital illustrations that I do, and it's terrible. I can't draw people. I struggle with perspective. Those are things I'm working on and learning. But they're blocky. The shading's terrible. I don't think it's even there at all. But that was the very first paragraph of the Basel Convention. I've since gone on to illustrate some of the technical annexes, some of the working group kind of material, and this will probably be out by the time it's all being confirmed. But I'm taking up a lead role in the storytelling and kind of visual communication for the Children and Youth Chemical platform. Which is very much explaining technical waste and chemical issues to children and youth, which fits very nicely with what I want to achieve with the illustrations. Um, so really, the ones I kind of like start from the early Basel Convention illustrations up until that point, they are very much just scribbles in a page. That's when I started trying to make them useful. And because I knew this question was likely, I do have basically reminders of all the different illustrations again. So I'll rush through them as quickly as I can. So we have a trash T-Rex. He explains recycling. On our street, there are a whole load of kids which have figured that out, and they have bin stickers of little T-Rex on their bins. So every bin day, it's a whole load of colourful different dinosaurs explaining kind of which bin has what kind of waste. We have got probably my flagship series, and the one I'm most proud of at the moment, are my hazard information pictures. So they are the UNDRR hazard information profiles, but personified and made bright and colourful. We have got my series of high-vis heroes. So these are a series that kind of highlight the work that the emergency services do. I always keep like a little tin of stickers on my belt. It has my diabetes stuff, but it also has the stickers. And so if I meet a off-duty paramedic or a cop, they get offered a little sticker as a appreciation for what they do. What else have we got? We have got it's not heavy because it's a rock. We've got a series of fire safety kind of illustrations. The intention is, I'm just going to go on the floor. The intention is that they will be kind of used to help explain fire safety, ignition sources, kind of river safety to kind of children around Manchester, because I volunteer with the fire service there. What else have we got? We've got a lot of the kind of technical waste management stuff that happens internationally at their negotiations. So Basel Convention is how you can send hazardous waste around the world. Stockholm Convention is the kind of phasing out of really nasty, persistent organic pollutants. And there's a whole load of others. We have got, this one's a relatively new one. In fact, this is probably the first time it's been mentioned publicly. I've got the UK National Risk Register illustrations, which is very similar to the hazard information pictures. Essentially, it's illustrating the UK's kind of public register. I like switching the last letter of the acronym so they can't claim that it's just copying. So I'm also working on the UK National Risk Rockery. So I am painting each of those little risks that I put out weekly onto a series of little stones, because I'm trying to figure out how I can do physical media rather than just digital, because I quite like being able to kind of hold things up and saying, hey, look, here's a prop. It's a bit more engaging, a bit more fun. We have got the Jessup series of illustrations, unofficially, but I'd love to have conversations with them otherwise. So Jessup illustrations are essentially what that says. All the kind of Jessup principles are kind of supporting doctrine information around it. I needed to know them, so I illustrated them, made them not colourful, made them black. That's the style for those ones. Those are the only illustrations I do people in, and they are very much just stickmen. And I've got a whole load of them. What else have I got? I have a weird series of biomedical science ones because my partner is a biomedical scientist. And so we've got a whole load of fun illustrations about working in a medical lab. We've got some nuclear safety stuff, and I think that covers most of it. Oh, and the other one, which I quite enjoy, is the vulnerable people's illustrations. So whenever I'm kind of in interesting conversations and a unusual reason why someone might be vulnerable in a emergency pops up, gets noted in my notebook, it gets illustrated, and it gets added to a growing number of visual representations of what makes someone vulnerable. Ranges from really kind of common ones that people always point out, from kind of English not being a first language, to some of the slightly more obscure ones, like evacuation routes or heat rising in high-rise buildings and kind of preventing access to cooling facilities. There's a whole load of really interesting ones, and I keep whenever I talk to people. And the one which is the shirt at the moment is the UK Critical National Infrastructure emojis. I thought I needed to be bright and colourful for some reason. So but I'd love to do some sort of kind of treasure hunt. So either with the kind of risk register kind of stones put around I don't know, like a country park or
Mm.
graffiti onto kind of various places in a city of the city's kind of local risk register, obviously with legal permission from landowners, all that kind of stuff. But and then have, you know, a fun way to introduce children, youth, families into what the risks of their local area are. And kind of point them to directions of what they might want to do beforehand, who they might want to know in emergency, that kind of stuff. The other kind of big ones I've got, I guess, I'd love to do a series of the kind of risk register or the hazard information profile kind of pins. The enamel pin, I make a series of enamel pins. So I've got, I don't know if you want to see this particularly well, kind of the latest one.
Yeah.
The wording there is stronger together, but it kind of like, it really kind of envisions what I want the illustrations to do. I want them to kind of bring communities together, understand what the issues are, and it not be like scary. The kind of, I guess, elevator pitch for what I do would be sparking curiosity, not anxiety, and that's really what I want to achieve with these illustrations. So those are the main things, but like, you know, there's a children's book I want to kind of draft out and publish. We spoke about that, and you know, I love the ideas we're having from that. I also really want these to be available for education and outreach and communication to the people who need to use them to get those messages out to the public. I'd love it to be a situation where they can be provided to kind of non-profit or kind of like charitable organizations who can use it at either minimal or no cost, but still be able to kind of somehow fund a way to kind of keep doing it and expand and kind of get it out there. I am a technical illustrator. I enjoy the illustration and the learning. My mind is not business orientated, so that is something to work on in the future. But yeah. And ultimately, I want to try and make people smile. I think the subjects that I illustrate are not typically the ones which bring smiles. It can be a little intimidating. Some of the stuff is quite scary if you really dig into the detail of it. But I think it's important that, you know, people are at least aware of it. And if you can spark curiosity, not the anxiety, you can get them interested, and they will then follow up their own curiosity and learn further. So I'd argue it's not just risk and resilience, but I think creativity in communication and kind of getting people to retain information and understand is a very powerful tool, regardless of what sector you're in. I've mentioned I am dyslexic, so I'm biased, but like I would much rather talk to someone, watch a video, read a cartoon, see something bright and colourful, rather than sit in front of a 20-page document and have to read that.
Yeah.
It's probably exacerbated by my dyslexia, but I think that's not uncommon. And there are numerous examples of kind of creative endeavors which have led to kind of really great ways to learn. If I'm allowed to, I'll name drop a couple of people who have either inspired what I've done or kind of like
absolutely
really along the way. So this is a book from 2008, I believe. I was about 11, 12 when I was given it by my parents. And it's the Elements of Style periodic table, illustrated by Simon Basher, I believe. And the poster of the illustrations is essentially personified kind of chemistry. The poster of that was on my bedroom wall since I was 11 all the way to it's still up there. Actually, I never took it down in my parents' house. And that's what sparked my curiosity in physics, in chemistry, in biology. And, from that age, science was very much what I focused on. I never had any interest for art at the time, but it was the art and the kind of bright kind of characters which really got me into that chemistry. And that works really well. He's got a whole load of books, and I've got nothing on him. I can only dream. But he has been inspiration to me, and I know he is an inspiration to kind of kids around the world. So that's an example of how creativity has inspired me, has helped my learning, has helped my understanding of subjects. But I also think it's important because there is an ongoing struggle to kind of get key information into school curriculum. And it's been, showed over and over again that the countries like Japan, who have resilience as part of their curriculum, do very well in kind of earthquakes, in kind of natural disasters, because they are so kind of familiar with it. And I don't know if that's a possibility for the UK. Potentially not, but that means we have to compete with all the other stimulus which young people and adults as well are getting from Facebook, from TikTok, from Instagram. They're loud, they're designed to steal your attention away. So if you then put up, oh, here's a 10-page document to read about what to do in a forest fire, I'm going to scroll on and watch the next video of a pigeon. So I think the creativity side of resilience can help bridge that gap between the standard kind of long, lengthy documents and the grab your attention, learn something quickly. Doesn't have to be the full story, just make sure they're aware of it. And if it keeps popping up, maybe, it'll go in, maybe they'll be curious, maybe they follow the next link to the information, which is a bit more in depth. And that's something I always try to do. I'll never claim to tell the full story about drought with an image. I don't think that's possible. I'll always say, here's something bright and colourful, little guy with particularly dry leaves and no water. Link that to the next level of information, whether that is, some local information aimed at kids, some local information aimed at families, and then hopefully they can then also link to, well, if you still want to know more, here are some links to the next level. And I think that stepped approach makes it a lot more approachable and allows people to kind of engage at the level which they feel ready. Okay. There's a couple of other things. I think your brain remembers the unusual. Like, I loved psychology when I was younger, studied up to kind of A level, so I can't claim to know loads about it, but I loved it and found it fascinating. And I always remember there was a particular lesson about if you walk into a shop and it gets robbed, you're much more likely to remember details of something really bizarre, like someone dressed as a clown, than just what your typical understanding of what a shop thief looks like. And I think by making risk information a little bit unusual, a little bit brighter, something which you won't normally expect to find kind of that information in that format, I think that helps remember it. I'd like to think there are people who have seen some of my risk illustrations and it's been a completely new risk they haven't come across before. Maybe it's the ice jam flood, where ice floats down a river, gets blocked by either a bridge or a sharp bend, and the upstream floods. I've got a fun little illustration of a load of ice blocks getting kind of huddled up together under a bridge, looking slightly shocked. I'd love to think someone somewhere might have seen that and thought, actually, that does kind of relate to this risk I'm talking about, which I'm really involved in, but I've never considered that other risk. And if it's just a bullet point on a list of risks, I don't know if I'd remember it. But if it's a fun little illustration, which I kind of, stopped and looked at for a little bit, maybe you do. Okay, yeah, so I've got two main points. I guess the first one would be look at where it's done well and kind of what you can learn from that. So I've pointed out to Japan, they are very good with kind of visual communication, symbology, kind of getting people exposed to that kind of young. And there's various other places around the world which do a really good job of it. And then I guess secondly, it would be kind of share what is good. Don't try and keep it to yourself because it's something good. And that's really tempting because sometimes it is, it's got kind of monetary value. It can boost your prestige, that kind of thing. But I am a big believer of kind of making what is necessary for kind of good resilience available to people. And that's difficult to kind of do, particularly when you've got corporate branding and corporate kind of responsibilities, but I really do think if people are willing to share what works and willing to say, yes, I've made this, but I think everyone will benefit from it. I think that's a really good step in the right direction. And then just very briefly touching on kind of the attention-grabbing Instagram type stuff. Looking at what is good, what does work, there are some really fantastic kind of fire safety kind of accounts from various different services globally who do some fantastic stuff on fire safety at the moment, which is particularly relevant with the forest fires across Europe. But they have kind of fire safety taught from a kind of like a character selection screen of a video game where, you know, the different fire trucks with the different stats and the different uses are kind of shown and kind of swiped across, and you see them kind of hurtling in and then back out. You've got you know, all the kind of like trends which are going viral, but they are jumping on it with interesting but relevant and useful information about what to do in forest fires. And I think that kind of creativity is often blocked by corporate, or there's a reluctance to kind of try and engage with something a little bit more quirky, a little bit more fun, because it's not the way that's been done in the past. So that's what I think my recommendations would be for kind of trying to make it work. And finally would be, this is all very much a passion project. It's unfunded, it's in my spare time, it's something I'm passionate about, so it's not stopping. But that means I don't have time or resource to focus on, you know, ironically, comms for it or kind of advertising or anything like that. So it's very much a word of mouth kind of thing. The algorithms don't like the fact that I'm not jumping on every controversial subject. So I very much am at the whim of shares and kind of that kind of face-to-face and kind of virtual kind of sharing. So if there's anything you find fun, useful, made you smile, you think someone else would be able to kind of benefit from, any kind of mention or kind of sharing some of the stuff I do would be really appreciated. I'd love it to be at some point something that I can take to, you know, conferences or you know, events and say, here's something which I can provide a service for. At the moment, I'm still small, so it's very much what people are willing to share.
For them.
Also, any interesting conversations I'm always looking for, because they inspire the illustrations I do. So if you think you've got an interesting conversation which I might want to illustrate, I'm all ears.